So, that being said, second thing I want to talk about. We're just going to speed run this. I'm going to pull this up. We're going to go ahead and go like this, and boom, desktop main. And then we're going to go ahead and go. Let me think. Yeah, we'll do this. We'll go, Cashy, Wuthering Waves, stats. And then we'll do the same thing, but for Changli. I do just want to say as well, these have changed recently, actually. Cashy got nerfed a little bit because in the beta she was hitting for over 2 million damage, which was stupid. And Changli actually got some buffs, so we're going to talk about this while we're at it. Should you pull for Cashy or Changli? Or, side note, should you pull for Yinlin? Just before we start this conversation, if you can get Yinlin and Yinlin's weapon, pull for Yinlin before the banner ends. This video probably won't be up until afterwards, which is why I'm just mentioning it here. Yinlin's probably a more valuable character for your account. There won't be as much power creep in the sub DPS category. Historically, that doesn't tend to happen. Cashy or Changli? The big difference is Cashy is a pretty selfish main DPS that doesn't like being on the field a lot, which is weird. That has absurdly high damage scalings. Her basics, midair, dodge counter, like none of this matters. It's mostly her skill and her ult. I mean, at maximum level. Okay, we can mute the Wuthering Waves audio in the background. At maximum level, I don't know why this goes to level 19. Do they know something we don't? Level 10. Why are they going up to 19? Wait, is this something new? Am I missing something? I don't think I'm missing something. Weird. Okay, level 10. I mean, her skill damage is okay. But she gains damage percentage based off of how much incandescence or overflowing radiance she has, right? Like her forte circuit here. I believe the scaling is in her forte circuit, not her skill, because this shows her other ones. So it would be, I believe it's a Luminous Epiphany Solar Flare damage. I could be wrong. Star Glamour damage. I could be wrong. Additional multiplier. I mean, we can just look at this. We know that this multiplier goes up to 40 stacks. 26% at level 10 times 40. So it's basically 100% times 10. That's 1,000% extra damage scaling on top of her normal scalings when she has the 40 incandescence. Biggest thing with Cashy is that her incandescence gain is very bad. Right? When she's on the team, all nearby characters on the team gain a effect when they deal damage with an attribute. She gains 1 incandescence. She can get 1 every 3 seconds. So the idea is basically you have off-field damage dealers like Mortifi or Yinlin dealing damage while you have an on-field character dealing damage. So you're like trading back and forth the 3 seconds. And then Cashy comes out with a bunch of incandescence and pops it. But 3 seconds times 40, that's 120 seconds. That's 2 minutes. So if you have 40, start a boss fight, pop that with your skill for the damage, you have to wait 2 minutes to get her main damaging skill all the way back up. Now, her Liberation also has very good scaling. It's about 1600 at level 10. It's got a 24-second cooldown. It's 150 cost. Not the worst. Not the worst. For the cooldown, the cost is fine. Her damage, very high, but her skill just scales massively, and you want it. You want it back. You know, it's very, very nice to have this as well as her ults so that you can maybe over the course of a 2-minute fight, you can skill ult, switch skill ult 2 minutes later, right? But it's 2 minutes later. She's a very good, massive nuclear bomb of a DPS every 2 minutes. However, her outro skill helps because it reduces the cooldown of her thing to 1 second for 20 seconds, which means you can get it a little bit quicker than 2 minutes. Now, in 20 seconds, you have 20, and then you have 3 seconds times 20, 60. So it's 80 seconds total instead of 120. So it's a minute and 20 seconds. It's a little bit better, but it's still slow. It's still horribly slow. But her sequences. This is something I stand by. Building a character means getting the sequences in their weapon ranks. Just save up and dump into characters you want and really build them. Right now, getting S2 is not too difficult if you've been saving and maybe got Gion skipped Yinlin, or you got Yinlin early, right, and you're just saving for Jinshi, or if you skip them both and are saving for Jinshi, you can get this. Skipping over her S1 because it's just the extra damage boost. Her S2 is dumb. She recovers 40 incandescence when staying out of combat for more than 4 seconds, once every 4 seconds. So that turns her 120 second or her 80 second cooldown for her skill to deal maximum damage to 4. I just need to make this abundantly clear. It makes her rotation go from 120 seconds / 80 seconds with her outro to 4 seconds for her rotation to be able to be used at maximum damage output again. We can think about this as a damage percentage increase based on time. 80 divided by 4 is what? 20? 20 times better. Effectively a 2,000%, not scaling, damage increase for the character's entire kit, because she can now play on a 4-second cooldown and not on a 80-second cooldown, right? Her second sequence makes this character work, because otherwise this character is clunky. You can play her every 120 seconds, maybe every 200 if you every 80 seconds, maybe every 120 seconds if you messed up and didn't outro her, and you like were a sliver off and you outro and you're like, oh no, right? 4 seconds. If you're going to pull for Jinshi or for Changli, if you're going to pull for Jinshi, pull her S2. Because otherwise she's just not going to work very well. Sadly, she's going to, like, the investment you will have to be high enough that she can basically insta-kill bosses. She needs to be able to instantly kill the bosses in like 1 rotation, possibly 2. If you want to 3-star stages in like the TOA with her, you have to pretty much be able to become a nuclear bomb and kill the boss in 1 hit. Like her skill and then her ult. And you have to kill them in 1 hit. 1 rotation. Her S3, when she intros, she gains more incandescence and attack boost. And when you ult or skill, damage boost, and your damage multiplier of your ult increases by 120%, which isn't a lot because her ult hits so goddamn hard. And her damage multiplier for her skill that deals the big damage is increased by 45%. The multiplier increase brought by incandescence is additionally increased by, I want to veto this, it is not 71% anymore. It's been nerfed. I believe it was 45 as well, to be in line with this. Reason why is because once you got S6 people with Jinshi with 40 stacks of incandescence, we're hitting for a stupid amount of damage. Because instead of 25%, pretty much, you were looking at 100% times 40. That's 4,000% extra damage scaling, plus the 1,000 it already is, basically. Like, yeah, you were looking at like 5,000% damage scaling, plus her ult, at like 1,800%. You were looking at 6,000, almost 7,000% damage scaling on her ult, with the right echoes and the right, her like main weapon and everything. I mean, she'd hit a boss once and it'd die. So they nerfed it down to be in line, but her S6, if you can get Jinshi S2, she is playable. she's playable anyways, but she's actually playable in like a hot swap team. Because you literally, like, Jinchi is a character you cannot main DPS and like solo bosses because she has to charge her skill off field, which is awkward, right? S2 at least allows her to be on field more often, so you can main DPS her just by switching into a character and dodging a few times. And then S6 makes her damage stupid. Her weapon also, I believe I can pull it up here. We can go ahead and see weapons. Let's see if they've got the weapon. Ages of Harvest? Is it Ages of Harvest? Yes, it should be Ages of Harvest, and we'll also bring this one up because this is Cheng-Li's. So, weapon, Ages of Harvest, it's crit rate scaling. Bring it up to max level. 24% crit rate, mostly attack. This is actually, I believe, the highest base attack scaling. I'm going to rescind that. I don't think so anymore. I just realized I'm wrong. No, it's just crit rate scaling. Okay. 12% additional damage bonus to all attributes. This is pretty standard right now. You get 1 stack of Blessing of Ages for each basic attack strike up to 4 stacks, which is removed when they leave the field at 4 stacks. They consume all stacks of it when casting a Resonance skill, with its damage increased by 48% for 2.5 seconds. This can be triggered 1 time every 6 seconds. So the goal is, with this weapon with rotation, you skill and your damage of the skill gets increased by 48%. Oh, wait. 96%. Doubling the damage. So Jinchi S6 with an R5 weapon at, what was it? Post nerf, you're looking at 45, 60, 70% scaling times 40, 28, 2,800%. So about 3,000 someone scaling. Now you're at 6,000 scaling. You are now with the R5 of this weapon at the same scaling as not this weapon, but S6 pre-nerf Jinchi, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, it's enough to kill a boss. It is plenty to kill a boss. Her weapon is absurdly important for her playstyle because you really, really want that bonus. The damage increase is stupid. This does not mention scaling, because if it was scaling, it'd be next to nothing for her, diminishing returns, right? No, this is damage increase. So should you pull Jinchi? Well, if you're gonna pull Jinchi, I recommend at least getting her S2 with her 1 copy of her weapon, right? I think that's the minimum you need to make Jinchi work for your account. She's the best DPS in the game by a lot, if you do, right? But I think you need it. Next to Cheng-Li, who I can now say her name right because I've seen it and I just forgot earlier. Cheng-Li is a little bit different. She's focused more on her Forte circuit as far as not just her skill dealing all the damage, but the way that this activates her whole kit. When she heavy attacks, if she carries her stacks of Enflamement, she consumes all of the stacks to release Flaming Sacrifice, dealing fusion damage considered as Resonance skill damage. She can hold up to 4 stacks of Enflamement. She gets it by every basic attack True Sight Conquest on hit. She obtains it for every basic attack True Sight Charge on hit. And she obtains 4 stacks of it for every ult she does. So, at level 10, it's 378% plus 36 and 150, so about a little under 500% scaling on her Forte circuit. Her ult dealing 1,200. And when she releases her heavy attack Flaming Sacrifice within 10 seconds, her attack is increased because she goes into her Fiery Feather like mode, right? Her skill at level 10, I mean, this is where a lot of her damage is as well. Her Forte circuit basically is what enables all of this stuff to happen and do the right rotation. True Sight Capture, after releasing her skill, she rapidly attacks the enemy and enters True Sight, lasting for 12 seconds. In the end, she releases a plunging attack, dealing fusion damage as 2 initial attempts and can be used up to 2 times. The number of attempts is increased by 1 every 12 seconds. her True Sight capture. True Sight conquest. When in True Sight, if she uses the ground basic attack, she releases conquest, rapidly approaching the enemy and dealing fusion damage. Consider it as resonance skill damage. After releasing the conquest, True Sight ends. So you're mostly attacking in the air with capture, and then you conquest and it ends it. And charge. If she jumps or uses basic attack in mid-air, she releases charge, dashing towards an enemy and dealing fusion damage, considered as resonance skill damage. Afterwards, it ends. So you basically are plunging and either basicing or jumping to go into conquest or charge. And they have different damage scalings. You know, your capture's here, your conquest is here, and your charge is here. They're all very similar, and you can basically spam this. This is like her main thing. The cooldown for her skill, she might not even have one. I'm not seeing a time cooldown. But chances are by the time you're done doing her combo, it'll be up again. And then her basics. After basic attack 4, she gains True Sight again. Mid-air attack stage 4, she gets True Sight again. So she has multi-stage air attacks instead of just a plunge. Heavy attacks, she gets to go into mid-air attack stage 3 from it, which then you can go into mid-air attack stage 4. So there's combos out of heavy attack to basic into mid-air attack 4 to get True Sight and to extend, right? Mid-air heavy attack. After holding basic attack in mid-air using basic attack True Sight charge, you can use basic attack to consume stamina to perform a plunging attack. So her plunge is separated. So she's not going to be able to do the septuple jump tech, but I don't think she needs to because she's got all these like mid-air flying things. And her dodge counter. And her damage output is not particularly bad on any of these either, especially because she's kind of built around being in the air. Her mid-air attack damage scalings are pretty good. 1, 2, 3. The scalings are pretty nice. Like this is 132% on her mid-air attack 3, 100% on her second one, and 60% on her first. So her basic attack scalings aren't bad either. She's a very well-rounded kit that plays very much on-field DPS, right? Her intro, she appears in midair, attacks the target, enters True Sight, so just easily gets into her like mode for her damage output. Her outro skill, switched in resonator, increases fusion damage by 20% and ult damage by 25%. So very similar outro to Yinlin. Actually, it's a little bit better than Yinlin's, I believe. Don't quote me on this. I might be wrong. No, it is the exact same as Yinlin's, but for fusion. Yinlin has probably the best outro in the game for buffing. If you're going to another Electro character, it is by far and away the best buff. Changli now is the best buff for going into other fusion characters. So Chixia, Encore, massive gains from this, from just her existence, right? As a sub DPS to outro, massive. But I do not think that this is where she's most valuable. Why? She has her passives. She gains fusion damage for herself. When she releases her heavy attack or ult, her fusion damage is increased again, and she ignores 15% of target's defense when dealing damage. On her heavy attack, flaming sacrifice, or ult, radiance of fealty, which is her main damage output. Defense shred historically is better than damage buffs. Genshin Impact, defense shred is better, although there's not much of it at all. Star Rail, defense shred is vital for damage output increases. Punishing Grey Raven, defense shred is the game. Like, just outright defense shred is the game. You have tanks that shred defense, supports that basically buff your damage, your DPS hits buffed with defense shred. With the buffs, no defense shred, you deal no damage. With defense shred, no buffs, you deal a lot of damage, because defense scales exponentially better than buffs. The opponent can resist less of your damage, which means your buffs and damage go further stat-wise, basically exponentially increasing, not just a multiplicative, but an exponential increase to every buff your character gets, which are diminishing returns, but are still technically better this way. going into her sequences, her first sequence, her skill and heavy attack increases her damage up by 10% and resistance to interruption. Makes her a little bit safer in combo, 10% damage increase, while also shredding defense, at least on her heavy attack here. I mean, okay, maybe not that heavy attack, but a heavy attack. Okay, she gets 10% damage increase and resistance to interruption. I'm taking back what I just said. Pretty good. Her S2 increases her crit damage by 30%. This has been changed. It is now crit rate. 30% crit rate instead of crit damage, which basically means you're guaranteed to crit if you have Inflamement, which means your main combo string is a guaranteed crit. S3, her ult damage is increased by 80%. Just double her ult damage. Let's do it. Her ult damage is pretty good. So now it's 2400 scaling. Let's just double that damage. Very, very, very strong. We already know this from Yang having the same 85% boost to her ult, which makes her basically a DPS. Very, very powerful. Intro skill increases the attack of all team members by 20%. So when she intros for 30 seconds, she's got 20% more attack, which again scales better with the defense shred. Heavy attack Flaming Vow multiplier is increased by 50%. When heavy attack Flaming Vow is released, her attack is increased by an additional 50%. More scalings on her multiplier of her heavy attack. This being the heavy attack that increases by 10% resistance to interruption. Very, 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 very good. Realized plans, her skill and heavy attack and ult ignore 40% of target's defense when dealing damage. Heavy attack Flaming Vow. Heavy attack Flaming Vow. This being the defense shred on heavy attack Flaming Sacrifice. Her heavy attack Flaming Sacrifice is going to be in her Forte Circuit. Flaming Vow. Damage. So we get Flaming Sacrifice. Does Flaming Sacrifice. She holds up the stacks to deal the Flaming Sacrifice. Where is her Flaming Vow? Because I'm not seeing a Flaming Vow. And I'm just going to say right now, not seeing a Flaming Vow in her kit, I'm certain with how this is worded, additional 40% of target's defense. I want to assume that this heavy attack Flaming Vow is the same as the Flaming Sacrifice one. Because from my knowledge, she doesn't have two different heavy attack, like named heavy attacks. It's not here, and it would be here. Flaming Vow would be here. And it is absolutely not here. How is she doing Flaming Vow? There's no Flaming Vow mentioned here. This is all her true sight. And there's no Flaming Vow mentioned here. So I think it is very safe to say that this is just adding 40% defense shred to her skill, 40% defense shred extra to her heavy, and 40% defense shred extra to her ult. So her ult is now shredding 55% defense, her heavy's 55% defense, her skill 40% defense. Every enemy is half as weak, which means much more susceptible to our buffs to damage. Cheng-Li's S6 mattering a lot for damage as well. Of course, every limited 5-star character is going to have a cracked S6. It's just going to be how it's going to be. It's going to incentivize people to pull and to save up for getting an S6 character. But this buff is insane. Everything else, like her S2 is good. Pretty much the same as Jinshi. Her S2 is like her second best. Although maybe her ult being a 80% damage increase is second best, but 30% crit rate, builder crit damage, and defense shred. So At 2400 damage on her ult with 55% defense shred, you can't just say it's a 55% damage increase, because it's not. It is technically a 2 times damage increase because they have half the defense, which means they resist half your damage, which means you're dealing double damage. So you're at 4800 damage there, but your skill also gets the buff, and your heavy attack also gets the buff. Your heavy attack dealing, let's see, like a little under 500% it was. Now it deals 1000%. And your skills dealing 1200. Now that's the ult. Your skills dealing all this, the true sight. Your skills, tripartite flames. Your skills damage, it also increases, which I am assuming is also these true sights, doubling these. So as a main on-field DPS with practically, it seems, 0 downtime in her damage combo, just outright 0 downtime, she has a lot of damage output. Jinshi requires S2 to have consistent damage output over the course of a fight. Like, I think you actually need to have her S2 to even make it a question whether you pull Jinshi or Changli. I think you just pull Changli, because Changli actually can just deal the damage, and Jinshi can't, except for every 2 minutes or minute and 20 seconds until S2. At S2, I would say big breakpoint for her. Jinshi becomes the better pull if you can get only S2 than Changli. I think at S6, it's a very good argument. I think that they are probably equivalent pull value. At S6, Jinshi being able to deal a massive amount of damage with her skill. Changli being able to shred a massive amount of defense. I want to lean, though, towards, with the defense shred, Changli being the better pull. At S2, Jinshi's better. At S6, I think Changli takes it back, because Changli being able to shred defense will always be good. Jinshi might not be able to explode a boss and kill them effectively. Maybe they resist Spectro, whatever. Changli, they could resist fusion. They are still taking double the damage with the lower defense, so their resistance making you deal half damage, you're effectively neutral now. I think S6 Changli just is probably universally the best DPS in the game. I think you can play her into literally any content, whether they resist you or not, and still deal absurd damage numbers. And we haven't even looked at her weapon yet. Because if you had S6 Jinshi with weapon, I would say pull Jinshi, because her nuclear damage is just too good. But let's take a look at Changli's weapon. Changli's weapon. Attack and attack. Lots of attack scaling. Her crit rate is increased upon dealing damage, increases Searing Feather by 1 stack, gaining a stack every half a second. When Resonance skill is released, increases an extra 5 stacks of it. Each stack increases Resonance skill damage bonus by 4%, stacking up to 14 times. After reaching 14 stacks, all stacks will reset within 10 seconds. So you get a 10-second window of 14 stacks before they go away once they are max stacked. With her combo, that's a pretty good buff. Go to rank 5, 8% up to 14 times. What is that? 80% and 8, 16, 24, 32, 32, and 80, 32, 112. 112% resonance skill damage bonus. Which, yes, diminishing returns, but that's still with the rest of your subs. You can get about 150 resonance skill damage bonus. I mean, that's a 2.5 times damage increase to your resonance skill damage bonus. That's basically the same as crit damage. Just for the record, that's the same as building crit damage. So your 2.5 times 2.5, what is it? 5.75 or something like that. Whatever. 2.5 times 2.5. Google, what is 2.5 times 2.5? I don't want to do this in my head. 6.25. So with 250% crit rate, you're looking at crit damage, sorry, 6.25 times damage to her already massive attack scalings. And with her S2, you get 30% crit rate, so you effectively don't need to build crit rate pieces or a weapon. You get crit rate subs and build a crit damage main piece and get crit subs. And you could have a 50% or so crit rate and 250% crit damage and 250% or 2.5 times resonant skill damage bonus. Pretty much. It goes from like 1.5 to 2. Because it's 150%. It's 2.5 times because technically you're dealing 100% resonant skill damage just outright because that's the damage you're dealing. So for multiplication's sake, it's 2.5 times. Right? Stupid. Stupidly good. So with the max level R5 weapon, I mean, it is hard to choose between these characters. We will say weaponless, S0, Changli, S2, Jinshi, S6, Changli. With weapon, S0, still Changli. S2 still goes to Jinshi. S6 still goes to Changli. And at a R5 of the weapon, it's the same thing. I mean, really, if you can only get a S0, get Changli. If you can only get a S2, get Jinshi. Because it enables her to be a constant, like, nuclear bomb. And at S6, go back to Changli because her defense shred is just going to be the most valuable debuff in the game. Like, her damage output's going to be the highest in the game because of that. Now, playstyle-wise, Jinshi's very much do a couple of your little strings into big skill, ult, switch, do some things, bring her back out, do the same combo, right? Changli, much, much more an on-field, staying there DPS, doesn't really even need support because her scalings are so high and she shreds with her own stuff. She doesn't need characters on the team. Like, if you had to pick a main DPS, you'd pick Changli. Jinshi is very much a hot swap DPS like Encore, and it's not someone you could like solo bosses with because you wouldn't have incandescent stacks unless you switch out. Changli, you could solo bosses with if that matters to you. If you like doing damage showcases with like as only the one character, Changli's the pick. And if you prefer being able to just unga bunga, Changli's the pick. And if you prefer more flourishy combos, Changli's the pick. If you prefer massive insta-hit nuclear damage and then switching out to other characters to do other things and just playing like a much more min-maxy playstyle, Jinshi's the pick. If you like seeing a boss get instantly one-tapped, especially at S6, Jinshi's the pick. Like, if you want to kill a boss fast, Jinshi's going to be the pick. If you want a more consistent boss killer, Changli's the pick. It's kind of how it's going to be. Like Jinshi's a nuclear bomb, Changli's an entire, like, war army. If you had to kind of make it that way, like, Jinshi's going to win the fight instantly. Pretty much. Or over the, like, 2, maybe. And Changli's going to be able to wear and tear and shred the hell out of whatever you're fighting. And kill it still very quickly, but more so very efficiently and very capably. Defense shred getting around basically resistance as well. So, who should you pull? It depends on who you are trying to have on your account and or who you like more. Because let's be honest, if someone likes Jinshi, pull Jinshi. If someone likes Changli, pull Changli. Personally, I was going to pull Jinshi. I thought she was super cool in the story. I thought she looked really cool how she summoned the dragon and everything. Problem being, I don't like playing hot swap very much. It's not my favorite thing. And after watching Changli's gameplay and seeing what her S6 does, if I can get her S6, I'm pulling Changli. Now, I might get just one Jinshi just to have, and if I get lucky and get S2, like I'm, awesome, right? But I'm stopping at S2 Jinshi with like R1 of her weapon. If I can manage to do so, I'm S6ing Changli and R5ing her weapon. Depending on who's on 1.2, because if I do that, I'm basically skipping 1.2 entirely. If I get both. If I don't get both, I can probably get each character in 1.2, which is why I like realistically, I'm probably skipping Jinshi. I don't think I'm going to enjoy playing her. That will change when I get to see how she plays in the thing that lets you try the characters with the new patch. I will try her. Otherwise, I'm pretty dead set on Changli. Her aesthetically, she's more pleasing to me. I like how she's got the parasol and everything. I like her sword, how she's very flourishy with her attacks. I like her whole combo string. I just, everything about her kit I love. The defense shred is awesome, and historically I know where that goes in games like this. Kuro games with Punishing Grey Raven, defense shred is absurdly important. I think that this is going to be the character I pull. Now, if 1.2 has Camellia, Scar, or there was another character I'm forgetting, then that might change things depending on their leaked kits and how fun they look to play. But otherwise, I'm probably all in on Changli and I'm skipping Jinshi. 1.2, I'm assuming, is going to be the other War General guy, and also possibly someone who comes up in the lore somewhere in the story that I'm missing, because I haven't really finished everything yet. But hopefully it's not like Scar Camellia, because that would be a terrible, terrible version to have both of them back to back, because that would just be that'd be tough. But I'm pretty much 100% to Changli personally. I think that she's going to be much more fun for me to play.